The North Minneapolis community is grieving after losing one of their own. 15-year-old Deshaun Hill Jr. played quarterback for North High School in Minneapolis. Someone shot him after school on Wednesday, and he died from his injuries Thursday night. Two Minneapolis pastors are now trying to find ways to heal the community. WCCO's Kirsten Mitchell spoke with them this afternoon.
It's been a full week, and I think tired is a word that comes to mind. Not necessarily physically tired, but just emotionally tired, mentally tired because of this week in the midst of 2 years of tragedy and just heartache that's hit our city and this metro area. I think this week in particular, I'm finding myself just looking for words often to encourage people and to help them not lose hope despite so much going around. I think we're certainly still in the midst of this pandemic, and that's weighing on people. People aren't able to connect in the ways that they want to. I feel like the last 2 years post George Floyd, people are still sitting with a lot of pain and wonderings around that. This election that we just had last fall was painful to live through as a community, to hear these debates that impact our lives here in North Minneapolis differently, and then to come into this year and have the death of Amir Locke, and then right on the other side of that, the shootings we've had this week here in North Minneapolis. It's a piling on effect, and you never really get to heal from one thing or recover from one thing before something else happens. And so I find my work as a pastor, it's one of those seasons where you don't have to wonder if your work is needed or if it matters. Every single day feels like the community, our congregation, even people who aren't directly connected to our church, I feel like need the work that we do. And so just always searching how can I continue to show up for the people who need me? How do I keep showing up for my own kids? I have 2 daughters and a wife, and balancing caring for them and caring for the community. It's a lot. This morning, actually, myself and 2 other leaders from our church were over at the school at the start of the day. We have some members of our church who are teachers there and who are faculty members there, staff members. So we were able to be over there and to connect with them. We're able to have some interactions with students in the hallways. It was just really quiet. Like people I really am impressed that students were able even to show up today. People weren't like as active and boisterous as they would normally be, but they showed up, which shows incredible resilience on their part. I think it's easy for us to think about what all that has happened in 2 years has meant for us as adults, but we also have to just think about what that must feel like for kids who are still trying to figure things out themselves, wrestling with questions of identity, and still then trying to make sense of losing people all around them, including someone that they were just with earlier in the day. So I can only imagine, and I know, in fact, that students are having a hard time. I think the strategy that I've employed over the years as a former youth pastor and former children's pastor, and now leading mostly adults, the thing that works is first knowing that young people are incredibly observant. They know a lot of what's going on, and so rather than shunning them or trying to hide things from them, I think creating safe spaces for them to ask questions, giving them opportunity to express their feelings, whether they are said the right way or expressed effectively, but just giving them space to express their feelings, and then as adults, not feeling the need to try and fix it or explain it away, being honest about our own feelings. I think what I've seen and have tried to do myself over these last 2 years is just to talk to the young people that I have relationships with, and then be honest about, there are times where I'm afraid as well. There are times where I'm frustrated as well, times where I'm very angry about what I'm seeing. And so if you feel that way, there's nothing wrong with that. I think our responsibility is to feel what we feel, but not lose hope, and being an older guy, I feel like I have more experience with that. And so if there's anything I can teach them, it is to how to handle those feelings and how to express them in ways that won't end up costing them more pain. Yes, it's hard to have hope right now, except for the fact that this morning as we were at North High walking the hallways, and we would take, at certain points we would pause and just look at some of the work and artwork and that kind of stuff on the hallways. You see that these students are, they're really wrestling with ideas, and they have opinions about what's happening in their world. They don't want to see the violence. And I saw posters on the walls and stuff that addressed like community violence as well as police violence. And I saw some posters that were asking questions about like the military and how we engage around the world. Like those are complex issues that they're engaging with as 9th and 10th, 11th and 12th graders. And so that gives me hope to know that the next generation, they're not waiting until they become adults to deal with these big issues. They're already wrestling with them. They're already formulating thoughts around them. They're sharing podcasts and their social media posts where they're speaking now to say we have a voice, we have an opinion. The student walkout that happened earlier this week, like that gives me hope because I know that I'm going to continue to work and try to do my part, but I know that the work is also in good hands because this next generation that's coming behind, they are eager to make an impact themselves. So when you sent the invitation about talking about healing, it was refreshing to me to have a conversation framed that way because I think the only way things will get better in Minneapolis and many other places where we see these kinds of challenges is if we begin to talk about this in terms of not just policy and left and right and Democrat, Republican, but the fact that real people are impacted by the things that we're reporting on and seeing on the news and hearing about. That when you talk about Deshaun's death, he was someone's son, someone's nephew. He's a classmate. He was an athlete. When we talked to the principal this morning, she said he was the kid that was held up as the model of here's how you make it out of a hard place. He did his work. He found a sport that he was good at and he excelled in it. Other kids looked up to him. And so when a kid does everything that you ask them to do and you tell them to do, and still something like this happens, you realize it's not just about being a better person. Like there's something wrong with the system and the systems around us that lead to a kid like Deshaun being killed. And it can't just be, well, let's give the other party a shot at it. You realize that the system is broken and the community needs healing. And as a pastor, I'm one of many kinds of leaders that we need to help heal this community. I think there's a part that the mayor and the city council have to play. There's a part that educators have to play. There's a part that families have to play. And all of us need to come together to heal our community. Otherwise, we see the cost of it. And there's a very high cost that we can't ignore anymore.
We as a community were very humbled by what had happened in our community. And so many people from the district as well as from the local came to North High School to not only show support for our student body, but also to reach out and touch anyone who just needed to talk, needed a friend, needed a shoulder to cry on, or just someone to speak to. Some of those cases we were able to go in some of the classrooms and just speak to the entire class that was gathered together. Obviously, it was a very sombering moment for them and very intense, very intense. At the moment that we arrived yesterday, the young man still was, his status of his life was still on hold. But you could tell that there were, I think, some trepidation from some of our students who thought maybe they might be the next. I mean, some of these kids are living in fear now and not really certain about from day to day how safe they really are. We certainly want to make a positive statement here that there is nothing to fear, that there is definitely every reason to hope and to believe that you will be safe anywhere you go in this community. And I think that message really has to be repeated over and over again, because right now there's a lot of individuals who don't really believe that. It's traumatic. It's a very traumatic experience. It's very trying. And of course, it makes you question now, do you want to step outside? Do you want to walk down the street? Do you want to go to a local supermarket? Do you want to hang out with your friend's place? And the answer is yes, you should have that right. This community is set up to be safe anywhere you go. But over the last recent weeks, of what we've been hearing and what we saw, of course, makes us think twice. And we want to really bleed and grieve for those that lost their lives, and it's very pathetic. And there's anger among us. There's certainly concerns about what the next days will look like. But so help me, we're going to fight our community. We're going to fight and get our community back, because that is the right thing to do. Faith and prayer, hope, love, reaching out to all. I think that our experience with the school was definitely a positive step. They were able to see that there were people that cared for them, and they cared for us as well. But they need to know that they have support. We got to support one another. And I think that's one of the bases of why we want to have a better community. Let us support each other. And of course, obviously, there's too many guns in this community. We have too much. And why are we having guns? There's no need for it, for crying out loud, when we have the right to go to school safely and enjoy the lives that we have. And we've had the lives of two 15-year-old lives just taken suddenly, abruptly. For what? For what purpose was that for? So I do believe that the next step, of course, is that everybody in this community, everybody take a deep breath. Let's pray. Let's thank God for what those of us that are alive and well. Let us pray and grieve with the families that lost their loved ones. But let's start reaching out, connect to each other, and say enough is enough is enough in this community. He was a I think he was an honor student, definitely did well academically, and was a great football player for the North High School. I know his teammates probably are really feeling it more than anyone else, the loss of a great guy that was on their team. And North High had a pretty good football team, by the way. They had a great team, and so to lose one of those players at a time like this is just awful. Well, I want to say that let us remember this. This is our city. It was given to us as a gift. And to all those soldiers that lost their lives due to violence cannot be forgotten. It's a matter of reflection that all of us must take responsibility in reclaiming our community. Let us bring back the support and cooperation across every block, from Aldrich Avenue all up to the Z alphabet. And let us become neighbors and support each other.
Keep watching CBS News Minnesota for continuing coverage.